present Genius, the evil stepmother of invention. Here is your host, Dave Gorman.
Hello, I'm Dave Gorman and welcome to Genius, the show all about your ideas. Every week, a celebrity guest and I dissect and examine a host of ideas, inventions, plots, plans and proposals, hoping to stumble upon an incident of genius. Tens of thousands of ideas have been submitted to us by you, the Radio 4 listeners, and let me tell you, when you read them all, and I have, they paint quite a scary picture of this station's listenership. One man wrote to say that he had invented a time machine, but had so far only succeeded in travelling back in time a few seconds, but hoped that could be improved with the extra funding and appearance on Radio 4 would secure. One man wrote to say that he had invented a time machine, but had so far only succeeded in travelling back in time a few seconds, but hoped that could be improved with the extra funding and appearance on Radio 4 would secure. One man wrote to say that he had invented a time machine, but had so far only succeeded in travelling back in time a few seconds, but hoped that could be improved with the extra funding and appearance on Radio 4 would secure, which is obviously nonsense, and certainly not something we would trouble our special guest with this evening for fear of insulting his genius. His genius is displayed in many arenas, as one of the country's finest exponents of stand-up, as a novelist, a journalist, and all-round Renaissance man. But for a particular example, I would point you in the direction of Jerry Springer the Opera, which he co-wrote and directed. Opinion on the award-winning musical is divided, largely between people who saw it and people who didn't. But who still feel qualified to hold an opinion. To have your work inspire thousands of people to take up a heartfelt opinion surely takes some kind of genius, and so I'm delighted to introduce as my guest this evening, Stewart Lee. Stewart, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
It's very nice to have you. The whole Jerry Springer thing, is that now sort of more of a burden? Seeing as it has its own sort of mythology that goes around with it?
Well, I went away for 4 months early this year thinking that all the fuss would blow over, and came back and we were still having all sorts of problems about it. We nearly had to go to court for blasphemy in the end, but the High Court decided that it wouldn't stand up because it wasn't 1508. So we were let off in the end.
OK, never mind. We proved that you are a genius. Do you have any genius ideas for us this evening?
Yeah, actually, in that... Here's one. I would like to see the Catholic Church fund and develop special pants for priests, right, which they would detect any element of arousal. And then there would be some kind of electric shock that would... or knives that would come out.
I think it should be doable, although I'm slightly worried that some of them would be aroused by electric shocks or knives.
And then they'd be in...
and it becomes self-defeating.
in a weird feedback loop.
OK, as the show goes on, you'll be presented with a series of ideas, and we'll discover which of them you believe to be genius. At the end, I'll ask you for your two favourites, and from this pair, our audience will select their favourite. The person who came up with the winning idea will be taking home with them not just the knowledge that they are a true genius, but also the much-talked-about Genius Trophy. Oh, yeah. And what a trophy it is. Yeah, what can I say to sum up the beauty of this trophy of dreams? If you sat this down next to the FA Cup, say, it really would make one of the true trophies look like the cheap and tawdry trinket it really is. Well, I'm sure the sight of the trophy has only served to increase the desire of our potential geniuses to prove themselves this evening. So let's crack on and meet the first of them. And it's Rachel Pudderfoot from Battersea in London.
Dear genius, how about a phone that lets you hear what the other person says directly after they hang up?
OK, Stewart, what do you reckon?
I mean, it's fraught with potential disaster. That I actually know someone whose marriage broke up because the man was on the phone saying, yeah, I'd be late, I've got a meeting and whatever, and then thought he'd hung up, but didn't, and she heard him arranging with his mistress, who was in the car, that they would go to a hotel room. Now...
But that's an argument in its favour.
That's an argument in its favour, although that marriage may have continued in happy, blissful ignorance. And everyone would have been delighted and no one would have known anything bad was happening. That's the terrible... You know, do you really want to know? That's the fearful thing. I mean, what would you be scared of hearing if your friends thought they'd hung up on you and they hadn't?
Well, I used to work as a receptionist.
Right.
And I think some of the people at the other end of the line might have benefited from it. But I think it's a brilliant idea. Potentially could wipe out all falseness in relationships across the world.
Yeah, although falseness is one of the things that I like in relationships.
lying is the lubricant of society. Right, that and alcohol.
Yeah.
Without them, we're nowhere.
It arouses me as well, lying and dishonesty. Is that wrong? Is that wrong? Don't judge me. But, yeah, it's a potential minefield. I'm not sure that we want to know. We want to know what people think.
I'm not sure it would actually work, because if it was widely known that these phones existed, so how long do you think it would stay connected after somebody's put the phone down? How long do you think you can still hear them for?
I see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
Like, you'd end up just waiting 5 seconds and then saying it. But what we'd have to do is have it be enormously expensive or enormously rare, so that it's not going to be owned in every household. Otherwise, it's going to...
If it's something that only I can have...
Yes.
Then it has some value. But I think once it was widely available, it would have no value whatsoever, much like Burberry. In that.
I think what would happen is that if that invention was out there, then someone else would invent another invention, which would be an invention that allowed you to hear the next 10 seconds after the phone that allowed you to hear the first 10 seconds had shut down. And then it would just be like nuclear arms race. There'd be no end to it.
It's going to make
It would
a lot
get out
of
of
people very
control.
nervous.
Yeah. I'd have an example of this. And I say this is the last show. And it is like the last day of school. And my producer doesn't know I'm going to do this. We sent him for coffee earlier. This is from my answering machine. He rang me up a little while ago. I've kept this for weeks because it just made me laugh. He rang me up and he thought he'd put the phone down after he'd left his message, but he hadn't put the phone properly in the cradle, and I could still hear him in the background. And he doesn't appear to be storming the stage, so I think I'm going to get away with playing this. There's a bit of a gap in it, and you'll just have to kind of stay listening because this is what happened.
Hi Dave, it's Simon calling. Just wondering how you're doing. Give us a call. Speak to you in a bit. Okay, mate. Bye.
Now stay listening.
Money's nothing and your chicks for free. Hey, that's the way you do it. Playing guitar on the MTV. Now, that ain't working. That's the way you do it. Money's nothing and your chicks for free.
I'm going to spare him his blushes, but I can tell you he does do the whole song. With full guitar solo. And he didn't know I had that. I've been playing it to my friends for about 4 weeks.
That's brought happiness to everyone, that, hasn't it? I was frightened that invention would cause dissent and anger in society, but this room of people have been delighted by hearing that.
But he doesn't know that this was happening. And I think this is my problem with the invention, is if it was widely known, then everyone would be ending their phone call either not saying anything for a good few seconds or turning the shower on and turning up the classical music like they're in a spy film. Because that's how you avoid being bugged, apparently. But it isn't really up to me, Rachel. It is up to Stewart. So, Stewart, I'm forced to ask you, the phone that you can stay connected to even when they've put the phone down, is it genius or not?
I'm really sorry. I'm going to have to say no for that one.
Rachel,
I'm sorry.
It's bad news. You're not a genius. You didn't know that when you left the house. At least you've learnt something about yourself. You're not a genius. Thank you anyway. Thank you very much, Rachel. OK, well, our next idea comes from Nick Torday from Leamington Spa.
Dear Genius, I believe the world would be a much happier place if car indicators all flashed at exactly the same rate. Nothing annoys me more than sitting at traffic lights, seeing a line of cars all indicating left, but all at different speeds and completely out of sync. Synchronized indicators would brighten up everyone's day when they were stuck in a traffic queue.
OK. I have to say, I sort of share the distaste. When I'm at the back of a queue and I see them flashing, I wouldn't write to Radio 4 about it.
Well,
Stewart, what do you think?
I feel very sympathetic to this issue. And I'm glad that the BBC has given me a platform. The problem is, if the one set's going, and you probably do what I did, which is you start singing a little song, don't you, in time with the one set of indicators, yeah? And then another set of indicators starts, and that's probably going at a different rhythm. And you can't keep the one song going because there's another rhythm working against it. That only works, that idea, if you're in the classic early 90s double trio lineup of King Crimson. Right, it can't... But there are other problems, and I'm sure you'll have noticed this, which is that even if you sorted that out, that should be sorted out, you'd still have the problem of what about when you've got your windscreen wipers on and you're indicating at the same time, and those two things are...
Well, that's your rhythm section, isn't it?
Yeah, but I find that... it's no good. I find that impossibly frustrating, to the point of madness. So I think
I'm glad that you're much more deep level about this than I am. Yeah.
It's very your problem, Nick. You haven't gone far enough. You've
I've only scraped the surface.
I thought about this indicator issue, but there's loads of other things in the world that aren't in sync either, and they need to be fixed.
If we pursue this line of thought, then we're going to have loud hailers on Oxford Street going left, right, left, right, and we have the world walking, perhaps marching, even goose-stepping, dare I say it.
And if we had that, we might not be in the state we are now.
What I was thinking was that maybe you could get Ken Livingstone to endorse it, so that the congestion charging zone would actually become a thing of beauty, a place of beauty. People would pay good money to be in an area of total synchronicity.
OK, well, let's see how annoying you find it. I've got a couple of metronomes, because obviously indicators won't work on the radio. So let's imagine this is my indicators on my car.
Yeah. OK.
OK. And this is Stewart Lee. He's pulled up behind me at the traffic lights. Right. And the indicator's on his car. He's leaving the theatre, ladies and gentlemen. OK, I'll turn Stewart's off. Is that really that annoying? Is this really the problem you most want to solve?
I'd rather you didn't do it again.
It is actually driving you mad, isn't it? It's not helping me, I'll be honest. I'm not sure. I just think I'm stuck between the two most anal men in the world. If you had alphabetic spaghetti, you'd eat it in alphabetical order, I'm sure.
Sorry, do you not do that?
Yeah.
No, I know.
Weird.
I'm getting a very good vibe on this from Stewart. I'm not a genius, he is. Stewart. Synchronised car indicators, genius or not?
I think it is possibly genius, and I would, if it doesn't win, I will fund it myself.
Nick Torday, Lemon Spa, you're a genius. OK, well, our next idea comes from James Chamberlain from Plymouth.
Dear Genius, I have an idea that I think can help to bring about world peace and whatnot. The idea is a gun that fires only puppies. This would remind people of the simple goodness in the world and should make them think a bit. Obviously, it would be wrong to send soldiers to a battlefield unarmed, so the puppies would then explode with the force of a howitzer shell.
OK, I think it's important to inform Stewart, as I have informed all the guests this series, evil genius counts as well.
There's an ethical dilemma in this, right, which is that the thinking behind it, James, is sound.
Thank you, I need no more.
You're saying... Yes, it is. He's saying that if people on battlefields saw puppies, that would make them think about the world, and it might make them lay down their arms and be less evil, because our enemies are evil, remember, because we're always right. But his plan ends with puppies being blown apart, I quote, with the force of a howitzer shell.
That's right.
And that's bad, isn't it? That's a bad thing.
Well, I think it explodes with the force of a howitzer shell. So it kills as many people as a howitzer shell.
And a puppy.
But also one puppy. So morally, for me, it's worse to the tune of one puppy.
But think how happy all those people are in their final seconds when they see this lovable little...
Well, I think that's worse. Right. That's distasteful, because what you're saying, again, the thinking behind it is sound. You're thinking that if you...
Will you stop saying that?
It's good up until the point where the puppy explodes.
OK, I'll tell you what, we weren't allowed to kill a puppy. So we did ask some top scientists to create for us the sound of your invention. OK, so I want you to contemplate what you've actually considered here. And take it seriously. This is what it would sound like.
I'm glad we heard that, because that alerted me to another logical problem with this, which is to what extent are puppies aerodynamic? Right now, I don't know if the technology exists out there to ensure the accuracy of a puppy fired out of a cannon. I think there's a risk, particularly with some of the long-eared breeds, that they might blow back onto your own forces.
Well, OK, maybe the puppy is housed in some aerodynamic kennel, which has a parachute attached to it, so that it floats down nice and safely, opens up, the puppy then trots out and explodes.
Yeah,
no, hang on, now I'm working for him.
Yeah. I like the way you're objecting to it, but you've just made it better.
Well, I don't think we can really pursue this conversation further unless we bring in what must be surely the most expert of witnesses, a puppy. So I hope we have in the wings a puppy. He's being brought on most humanely.
Listen to the people, listen to them. Listen to the public and be ashamed, James Chamberlain.
OK, so... We've got a King Charles Spaniel in the studio. OK, and how old is the dog?
He's 8 weeks.
8 weeks old, OK. Lovely little 8-week-old King Charles Spaniel. Ah. James, look him in the eye. He's instinctively turned his back on you. Look him in the eye and explain your idea to him. Explain to the puppy.
Would you like to die for your country? Your country needs you.
You're in the wrong job. You should be a New Labour MP.
Seriously, do you think that this is a nice thing to explode this puppy? And it would be this one.
Well, maybe it could be modified slightly to incorporate mankier dogs.
Now you're on to something. OK, so maybe you get manky dogs, but dress them up in cute hats and things. Deer stalker, that kind of thing. A dog dressed up is always cute. Right?
A lot of people made a lot of money out of that, especially if they're playing snooker. That's fantastic.
Stewart, the puppy gun, is it genius or not?
Well, you know, the idea starts off well. But the problem is this clash of interests in the second half where the puppies explode, and so because of that, I'd say no, he isn't.
There you go, James, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Never mind. OK, well, this next idea comes from Andrew Edwards, and he's from Cheltenham.
Dear Genius, my idea takes two items found in every home and combines them with amazing effect: a microwave and a CD player. Whenever a microwave is set into action, you get between 10 seconds and 30 minutes of humming. How much better it would be if it was linked to your CD collection. When you pick a time for cooking your meal, for example 3 minutes and 30 seconds, the microwave searches through your track list and selects a track of exactly that length. You know when the food is cooked because the track ends and there's no need for that annoying beep.
OK, yeah, OK. I'll explain the idea as best I can with sound. Basically, at the moment, when you put something in a microwave, it sounds like this. And ends with this. And you want to replace it with this. Well, what could be wrong with that, Stewart? I mean, that's got something to it, surely.
I'm very worried about this idea. I'm sorry. I'm very sensitive to my moods being influenced by music, and there's obviously going to be a correlation between what you're cooking and the genre of music that's the right length for that food, right? For example, this morning I warmed up a cup of tea that I'd left by the bed the previous night in the microwave. And that took 20 seconds. Now, under Andrew's system, that would mean the only kind of things I could listen to would be stuff off perhaps Napalm Death's From Enslavement to Obliteration album, or a mid-period Dead Kennedys track, very short, kind of 20-second bursts of stuff. And I don't know if I want the risk of drinking a caffeine-based drink straight after having my heart rate accelerated by early 80s hardcore punk.
See, what you could do there, though, what you could do is put the kettle on and make a new cup of tea instead of reheating yesterday's cold tea.
I didn't think that I was going to be under scrutiny here. That's my job. Now I'm the mad person. No, right. The other problem he's got there is the other thing that I cook mainly is baked potatoes. I have a medical condition where I'm supposed to eat one every day, and that's true, right? So I'm glad that you find that amusing. It's called diverticulitis, and I've been told that if I don't eat a large baked potato amount of roughage every day, the walls of my gut will rub together and bleed, right? So, ha, ha, ha. Anyway, like that, a big potato, the kind of size I need, I'm a big guy, I need 20 minutes worth of baked potato. What am I looking at there? It's going to end up being something like late period John Coltrane, and I don't know if I then will feel like eating a potato after
See, you need to go for the deluxe option. For the 30-second bursts, you play Guess the Intro round. So you'd have 10 seconds of each song, and you have to wake up to the boy like, oh, who's that? And you have to try and guess who sung that intro to that song. And then for your 30 minutes, it's going to play a bit of an album. But it'll always be exactly finishing when your food's ready. You might have 10 songs, you might have 7 songs, but it'll always finish at your food. It's not just the one song.
Yeah, well, you didn't say that in the start. Now...
Well, no, this is the basic version. It's the deluxe version we're after, you see.
Right.
Marketing.
But there are problems, because microwave food, it never says cook for 2 minutes and 59 seconds. It's always going to be for 3 minutes. I was like, this is from my own iPod. 2 minutes, 59 seconds, The Ballad of John and Yoko. 3 minutes, Daydream Believer. 3 minutes and 1 second, Penny Lane. This is a system that is in favour of the Monkees and not the Beatles.
But hey, it's only going to reflect your music tastes, isn't it? You can't blame the microwave for playing
No, because my music tastes involve the Beatles, but yours wouldn't let me ever play them.
Maybe what would happen, actually, there's a nightmare scenario whereby the added exposure that artists could get from conforming to Andrew Edwards' microwave CD player system would mean they would start writing songs that correlated to the length that it took to prepare ready meals.
You can even link it to the top 10 on a Sunday night, with your Findus top 10 ready meals.
Does this mean there'd be a situation where ready meals would get in the charts? I'm confused now.
I'm sensing there's some
I like the idea of
positivity here.
A band, they're sitting with the management and they're going, what do you think of that? It's great, it's the best song I've ever heard, but it's not the same length of time as it takes to make a seafood pie. We need to, as well as saying something about the human condition over an innovative musical backdrop, that's something you now need to address.
OK. Stewart, let's get down to the nub of this. Is the CD/microwave combination, is it genius or not?
I think
Fantastic.
yes.
There you go. Andrew Edwards, fantastic indeed. We have ourselves another genius. Well, let's see if our final idea lives up to that. This comes from David Gorman, who lives in Paris but hails originally from America.
Dear Genius, my idea is for a self-cleaning fish tank. I've always felt that the best place for a fish tank was in the WC, since there is little else one can do there. My idea is to have the fish tank do double service as the toilet tank. Each time you flush, the water from the fish tank evacuates, giving the fish exercise as they struggle against the vortex. It is the fish version of whitewater rafting. Of course, there will be a screen at the bottom of the tank so that the fish do not actually go into the toilet bowl.
Right. Welcome to the Animal Cruelty Special edition of Genius. You're calling this the self-cleaning fish tank?
Yes, well, tidy bowl or whatever you want to call it.
It's not the most confident marketing strategy for what is basically a novelty toilet, isn't it? Stewart, what do you think?
Well, as earlier, as you pointed out, Dave, there is the problem that this does seem to involve cruelty to animals again. Although, arguably, unlike the puppy, the fish has a shorter memory, so it wouldn't, in the process of being sucked into a vortex, it would presumably forget that was happening, then realise it was, then forget it again, and then realise it was. So, I mean, I'm anxious. I'm anxious about the cruelty.
It's frightened out of its life. Yeah, every time it happens. It never ever gets to the confident stage of it's all right, this happens, I know I'm going to survive. It always thinks death is about to happen. Yeah.
Well, I think the fish can learn. Like the first few weeks, after a week or so, it'll understand that if you touch your belt buckle, something really exciting is going to happen. I think it might.
Yeah. But the problem with what David's saying now is it's implying that the fish is some kind of pervert. And it's aroused by A, spying on people, and B, seeing them go to the toilet. And that is insulting to fish. And secondly, it presupposes the possibility of interspecial sexual attraction between humans and fish.
It's the equivalent of your doorbell going. You go to the door, and 4 men with balaclavas come rushing in with guns, pin you down, frighten you to death, and then give you some drug which wipes your memory, leave, and come back and do it again 2 hours later. That seems to me what you're doing to a fish.
I think you're underestimating the fish. I think they need a little excitement. The fish store owners don't tell you this, but Most of the fish you see floating on the tank have died of suicide because they're so bored swimming around in circles. When you leave the room, they knock their head against the glass until they die.
So what they need is what you call whitewater rafting.
That's right.
The fish store owners might not tell you that they die of suicide, probably because it's not true. But they will tell you that what you're meant to do with goldfish for their well-being is to change 20% of the water about every 2 weeks. Not all of it, every few hours. I personally believe this sounds to me to be cruel to the fish. I have issues with that. I'm not sure if Stewart shares my feelings. Stewart, do you think as it's called, the self-cleaning fish tank, no mention of toilets, do you think this is genius or not?
I nearly do, but ultimately I'm worried about the fish, and I'd say no.
David, it's bad news.
I'm devastated.
You're an American non-genius from Paris. But we thank you for coming. Thank you very much, David Gachet.
Thank you.
OK, Stewart, we know which ideas you believe to be genius. You went with synchronised car indicators and the CD microwave. In which case, I'd like to invite Nick Torday and Andrew Edwards to take the stage again, if you wouldn't mind. Make them welcome. So, it's a very simple process. Now the audience get to decide. All those in favour of the synchronised car indicators? And all those in favour of the CD/microwave? Well, you're shaking hands as if it's a done deal, but I think we need to check that again. It was quite close. So, Andrew, I think this has got to be a proud moment in every genius's life. It really has. I'm handing you the Genius Trophy. Is that the best day of your life ever?
Speechless, Dave. Absolutely. It's magnificent. So many people have helped me so much with this idea. I'd like to thank my mother and father and your good selves for allowing me to come here on this stage today in front of all you very good people who've very kindly voted for me and giving me a chance to share my idea with you, and hopefully I'll go on to great things with my CD microwave and you'll all have one in your home soon. Thank you.
The scary thing is, I think he means it. I would like to thank our wonderful genius of a guest, Mr. Stewart Lee.
Thanks, Simon. Thank you.
And there is just time to read you a small selection of ideas suggested by our audience this evening, which include powdered mineral water, anaesthesia airlines, where all passengers are given a general anaesthetic before takeoff so that no one can feel scared of flying, get airsick or hijack the plane, and non-alcoholic Alco-Pops for kids, or in other words, bottles of pop. My name's Dave Gorman. Good night.
Genius was hosted by Dave Gorman and featured special guest Stewart Lee. It was devised by Ali Crockett and David Scott.